Hello, I'm Bob Phares, past district governor for Rotary 5630, and it's my privilege to be here today with President Ted Carter from the University of Nebraska. Ted's a new addition to the University of Nebraska, so we're going to have to quit saying that pretty soon. But he came officially a little over a year ago without any warning that he was about to walk into the COVID pandemic and the challenges that were there, but it's been a very interesting year.
Sure has, yes.
Ted came to us, he was just retiring from the Navy, having led Annapolis for 5 years, and I'll just pause a minute to tell you how unusual that is. I didn't know this until I met Ted, but normally you come on as the superintendent of Annapolis, or whatever the correct term is, and you're there for a 2-year appointment. Sometimes it can be extended. Ted's got extended to 3 and 4, and that wasn't because he wasn't getting things done. It was because he had too many things going on that they wanted him to finish. And so literally, it took an act of Congress to add that 5th year, had to be approved, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
And he's the only guy that ever had the privilege of leading that institution for 5 years. So we are just delighted to have he and Linda in Nebraska, and delighted to have Ted and his leadership at the university. So welcome again, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
And, we're just going to discuss a little bit some items that have been interesting to the university that we think parallel with Rotary leadership in our district. And one of the things that the district governor is challenged with is to keep all the ships moving in the same direction, to get back to that naval analogy. And you know, with over 38 years of military service, you've encountered that a lot of times. And now with our 5 campuses in the university, you still have a challenge of keeping everybody moving in the same direction. So what have you learned about that might be helpful to our Rotary people?
Well, I've certainly learned a lot over this past year, that's for sure. It has not been like any year that anybody in this country has ever experienced. But interestingly, coming out of the Navy and maybe my last significant time at sea, being in charge of an aircraft carrier and about 20 ships around it, there are some amazing parallels between trying to lead effectively amongst all those different sailors and Marines and ships, and what we're doing here at the university. And I think there's even some parallels to Rotary, which is also, you know, an organization that is often trying to do things that will affect change, but spread out all over, in this case, Western Nebraska. And the idea is simply, you know, when you give people your intent, rather than telling them how to do things specifically, and show them what right will look like, and let them have their own buy-in to what right will look like, you have a tendency to be more effective. And that's, I think, one of the hallmarks that we have established this year at the university. Getting our 4 main campuses, our 5th, when you look at NCTA out at Curtis, on board to understand what our intent is, how to complete our mission, and giving them the right tools and resources to do it, has proven to be very effective this year.
It has. And just as a follow-up to that, you know, sometimes it's difficult to get the ships started in the first place. And I think sometimes you tend to say, well, they're just being apathetic. And I'm not sure that that's the case, that people don't want to serve,
right,
but they just haven't quite got it pulled together. What do you do to get it together and moving?
Well, one of the first things we did when I got here was to bring all the right leaders together, the campus leaders, the right deans, the vice chancellors, the vice presidents, and we reinvigorated what our mission was. It was kind of reaffirmation to say, yes, this is what we're here to do. And then together, collaboratively, we worked on what our vision would be. In other words, where do we want to go? And simply, in this case, affordability, accessibility, and growth were the 3 elements that we created and where we want to go with the university system. But at the beginning, just that reaffirmation of what it is that we're here to do, that is the quickest way to get past any sense of apathy.
Good good plan. With the COVID that you walked
Yeah.
into, now reflecting back, what are you most proud of in terms of our response to this challenge?
Well, let's face it. I mean, we're 52,000 students, 16,000 faculty and staff spread out across all of Nebraska, especially when you consider extension. When you take all that into account, we could argue that we are one big giant aircraft carrier. You know, we don't turn around very quickly. We are arguably our own bureaucracy as an institution, and we're just not known for being that agile. And the thing I think I'm most proud of how we've not only accomplished our mission, but come out of this, I think, stronger, is our ability to be dynamic and agile. We have moved quickly. We moved very quickly to go to remote education when it was obvious that the global pandemic was upon us. And then we quickly shifted to things like freezing tuition rate, creating Nebraska Promise, a free tuition program for those Nebraskans earning $60,000 or less, changed the whole profile for what the cost of online education would be, reducing it by 9% in Omaha, 7% in Lincoln. We changed the academic calendar to minimize travel and best benefit students and reduce the spread, especially when we thought the spread would come back in the fall. And finally, we said we'd be open, which was a big statement to make in the summer of last year, so that we would let our students know that, hey, we plan to be open. We're going to do it safely, and that gave everybody a sense of predictability. And when you roll all that up, this basically was behavioral change for our faculty, for our staff, and maybe most importantly for our students. And we have gotten through this, at least thus far, in good shape.
Yes, we have. We really have. And as you look around the country, some of the universities just seemed to me like they took the approach that they were just going to hunker down and wait this thing out. You chose not to take that path. Was that an easy buy-in with the chancellors and the campuses? Or what challenge, I guess, did you have in really?
Yeah, Bob, we could have done that, and we've seen so many of our peers, and you know, the biggest, most famous institutions in the country went that way. If we had done that, we would have probably lost 5 to 7% of our enrollment, which is what we have seen in Midwestern universities and all of the other universities on the coast. We chose not to do that because we didn't think we'd be able to recover in terms of the size of our institution, what we do for the economic growth of the state, and to provide a pathway to the workforce for the state. So those actions that I described earlier were this idea that we can't just sit back and let this impact us. We didn't have perfect information. Sometimes I call this the fog of COVID-19, or similarly to my previous experience, the fog of war. It's a real thing. But by making the decisions that we did, getting the buy-in of the leadership, getting the buy-in of the faculty and staff, we effectively turned the ship quickly. And we actually grew enrollment, which is something we haven't done pre-pandemic in the last 3 years. So this is a significant change in our approach. But more importantly, we're seeing student success. And that, at the end of the day, is what we are looking for. And we've got much more work to be done there.
Well, in Western Nebraska, we talk a lot about what can we do to maintain strong economic development. How do you see Nebraska at this particular point in time, and what do you think our potential to grow? I mean, it's been very impressive that the university has grown in the midst of this pandemic crisis. Highly unusual as you look around. So how do we translate that back into the state of Nebraska's growth?
Yeah, there is some promise on the horizon here. I mean, the census data just came out. Nebraska grew by over 7% in its population. I think that was a little bit of a surprise to Nebraskans. I can say that it was for me. The second largest growth over a decade in 100 years, second largest. And now we, in fact, in the nation, we were the 21st fastest growing state in the nation, which again, I think would be a surprise. We're now the 37th largest state. But yet, if you take a look across the entire university system, we're still losing more undergraduate, those with a bachelor's degree, than we're gaining in the state. So we as a university should first acknowledge that. Some people are calling that brain drain. So now we have to connect what we do as a university to the business community and find ways to connect our graduates with the business community and show them through internships that there is potential for great growth, economic development, personal family growth for our future families, and go to work here in Nebraska, stay in Nebraska.
And that's a challenge.
It
a
is.
Big challenge for
Right.
us as we move forward. Well, we've talked a lot in our university system about our roots as a land grant institution being education, research, and extension. Or as a friend of mine in Western Nebraska says, you guys ought to change that last one. It's really connection.
Yeah.
How you're connecting what the university is doing to those of us that are out there doing it. And so I'm particularly interested in what your attitude and your take is now on where can we go with ag and particularly ag research to be supportive as a university.
Well, there's no doubt that we, as one of the first land grant universities in the country, can never forget the roots from which we came. And the whole concept of a land grant university is to be inclusive and welcoming to all. In other words, the university system isn't for a privileged few, it's for everyone. So we have to remind ourselves that that is our baseline mission. Secondly is, how the university goes often is how the agricultural community will go. And that has always been that way for 150 years in this state. So we have to also keep that in mind and make sure that our programs, our academic disciplines, our research are focused on what is best for the farmer and the rancher of Nebraska. And we are doing that. We're continuing to improve on our academic programs, making that discipline more welcoming from students, not just from Nebraska, but from all over the country and from all over the world, who, people from Europe and Africa who want to come here to Nebraska to learn how we're going to best do water, food security, do the most we can with the water that we have. Our extension program, again, as you point out, connection. Is really as much about delivering the benefits for our farmers, of which 75% of all of our farmers use the information that extension brings from our university campuses and the research that's done. So although we're in a pretty good place and where we sit ranked nationally as an agriculture and forestry set of disciplines, I think we are poised to go even further and do more. So I'm excited about the future of our ag research and our ag academic programs.
Well, that's a good lead to the next question I was going to ask you is, what can the people of Nebraska expect out of us for the balance of 2021? I mean, we're all looking to say, is COVID over, or are we just moving into a new phase? What can they really expect from the university?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the university is doing a lot of work in the space around this idea of the farm of the future. And the farm of the future is going to bring more ag tech, more ag innovation. We're already involved in that. There's another initiative called the Rural Futures Initiative that will start to tie these ideas and bring them to, western Nebraska and those areas that are certainly west of Lincoln and even west of Kearney. And we're working very closely with USDA to look at some opportunities where we may be able to invest some federal money to expand upon what our research is, bring additional PhDs, these are the smartest people in the country and the world that can help us with, how do we make the land more resilient? How do we make it more useful? And this is going to be founded right there at our Nebraska Innovation Campus, a place that is poised for growth. So I'm telling you about this as something that's going to be happening here over just the next couple years. It's going to raise our brand even higher.
That's exciting to look forward to.
It is.
Forward. Well, you and I have just come out of the commencement season in our campuses, and I've heard you offer some things to our graduating students, but tell these other folks, what kind of words have you passed along to our graduates this year?
Well, a lot of things that I'm passing along are things our students have already learned. They have learned how to live in a world of unknowns. I mean, think about where we were a year ago, how much we didn't know as we were moving forward in a global pandemic. And they have survived it. They have been resilient. They've been tough. And I guess my biggest theme is, everything's not going to always go as you expect it. And when one door closes, you need to be ready to walk through another one and walk through it with enthusiasm and a positive outlook. And that's been kind of my common theme. And to be quite frank, that's how I've lived most of my Navy career and even my path coming to Nebraska. And if you go into it with a good attitude and a good work ethic, things will work out.
Well, I know that you are a sports fan. What a lot of these people may not know is that you were an athlete yourself, captain of the hockey team, as I recall. And so everybody in Nebraska, now after the spring game is over and we're looking forward to the fall, how do you feel about the Huskers in the fall?
Well, if folks out there are Husker fans, not just football, but Husker athletics fans, this has been a really great spring. When you look at men's gymnastics, number 4 in the nation, women's volleyball, although they didn't make the Final Four, still a number 6 national ranking. Our baseball team, top 25 team right now, and looking very good. Looking forward to the NCAA tournament coming up in June. Women's golf, we had a Big Ten champion and the team finished second. Women's bowling, national champions, six NCAA championships. And Rhonda Revelle of our women's softball team, 1,000 wins. And of course, our Husker football team. With the spring game in the books, a lot of enthusiasm this year. A big amount of defense coming back. Adrian Martinez coming back for his last year as quarterback. Obviously, Scott Frost in his 4th year as coach. A lot of expectation and a lot of anticipation. Now let's take a look though. We have the toughest schedule in the Big Ten, probably a top 5 toughest football schedule in all of college football, playing Oklahoma this year on their turf. So it'll be a tough year. But again, I am really optimistic for a great season. And we're going to have fans back in the stands. It's going to start to feel a lot more normal.
It will feel normal.
Yeah.
It really will. Well, Ted, thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership in the university and in the state of Nebraska. It's been great to have you here. Let me tell you one thing you may also not know about the hiring process here. We go through a search committee, and then those results come to the Board of Regents for our ultimate approval or disapproval. And 23 members, think about that a minute, in a search committee. How difficult is it to get 23 people moving in the same direction at the same time? But the search committee, as a matter of fact, did and unanimously recommended Ted to the Board of Regents, who unanimously took that recommendation and approved it. And we couldn't be happier than we are as we look forward and as we celebrate what we've already been able to do together. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Bob.
And thank you for inviting us to be a part of your session today.